Good day, everyone. Our lesson for today is about principal roots of rational and irrational numbers. For our objectives, we have to describe the principal roots, tell whether the principal roots are rational or irrational, determine between what two integers the square root of a number is located. Rational numbers. Rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as a quotient of two integers, a and b, where b cannot be equal to 0. In symbol, a over b and b must not be equal to 0. So the reason why b must not be equal to 0 is because the answer will be undefined. For rational numbers, under the rational numbers, we have counting numbers, whole numbers, integers, fractions, and terminating decimals, and repeating non-terminating decimals. For irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be expressed as the quotient of two integers. So for irrational numbers, we have non-terminating and non-repeating decimals. Let us define the parts of this expression. This symbol is called the radical symbol. The number inside the radical symbol is called the radicand. And the small number outside the radical symbol is called the index. So this is called radical. Okay, suppose we have a is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we will get the a squared. So if our a is equal to 1, so that means if we get the a squared, that means we have 1 quantity squared. And if our a is equal to 2, we have 2 quantities squared. Then 3 quantities squared, 4 quantities squared, then 5 quantities squared, 6 quantities squared, 7 quantities squared, 8 quantities squared, 9 quantities squared, then 10 quantities squared. So if we're going to expand this expression, 1 quantity squared is equal to 1 times 1. So we multiply 1 by itself, so the answer is 1. We're going to expand this expression, 2 quantity raised to 2, that means 2 times 2. So we multiply 2 by itself, the answer is 4. And this expression, 3 quantity squared, that means 3 multiplied by itself, 3. So the answer is 9. So a squared is equal to, so 1 squared is 1, 2 quantity squared is 4, 3 quantity squared is 3, 4 quantity squared is 16, 5 quantity squared is 25, 6 quantity squared is 36, 7 quantity squared is 49, 8 quantity squared is 64, 9 quantity squared is 81, then 10 quantity squared is 100. So these numbers are called perfect squares. So why are they called perfect squares? So let us find out that later. A squared is equal to b. Therefore, if we're going to get the square root of b, the answer is a. For example, if a squared is equal to 64, so if we get the a squared, the answer is 64. So the reverse, to get the reverse, we get the square root. The square root of 64, the answer is 8. So 8 is a rational number. So bakit siya tinawag na perfect square ang 64? Because ang square root niya ay isang whole number, wala siyang decimal. At the same time, it is a rational number. So pag kinuha natin ang square root ng 1, the answer is 1. Square root ng 4, the answer is 2. Square root ng 9, the answer is 3. square root ng 16? The answer is 4. Okay? So, kaya siya tinatawag na perfect squares. Note that this symbol indicates principal root only. So, if a raised to n is equal to b, then nth root of b is equal to a. What if a is negative? So, suppose we have a is equal to negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, and negative 10. Let us get its a squared. So, if our a is equal to negative 1, so if we get the a squared, so that means negative 1 quantity squared. So, if our a is negative 2, and we get the a squared, that means negative 2 quantity squared. Then, we have negative 3 quantity squared, negative 4 quantity squared, negative 5 quantity squared, negative 6 quantity squared, negative 7 quantity squared, negative 8 quantity squared, negative 9 quantity squared, and negative 10 quantity squared. So how are we going to get the value of negative 1 quantity squared? So let us expand this expression. So negative 1 quantity squared, it means negative 1 times negative 1. So if we multiply two integers with the same sign, the answer is positive 1. This expression, if we expand negative 2 quantity squared, that means negative 2 times negative 2. So the answer is positive 4. And this expression, negative 3 times negative 3, the answer is positive 9. Okay, so negative 1 quantity squared is 1. Negative 2 quantity squared is positive 4. Negative 3 quantity squared is 9. Negative 4 quantity squared is 16. Negative 5 quantity squared is 25. Negative 6 quantity squared is 36. Negative 7 quantity squared is 49. Negative 8 quantity squared is 64. Negative 9 quantity squared is 81. Negative 10 quantity squared is 100. So, what do we call these numbers again? So, they are called perfect squares number. So, note a squared is still positive. So, kahit negative yung a natin, pag in-square natin siya, the answer will be positive. So, for example, what are the square roots of 100? So, ang makukuha nating square roots, pwedeng negative, pwedeng positive. So, we have positive 10 and negative 10. Number 2, what are the square roots of 9? So, we have positive and negative 3. Number 3, what are the square roots of 25 over 49? The answer is positive negative 5 over 9. Number 4, what are the square roots of negative 36? Our a squared here, yung positive 36. We have positive 36. Ang square root niya is pwedeng positive negative 6. But we have here negative 36. So the answer is not defined. These numbers are called rational numbers. So look at this. So if a is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, let us get the a cube. So if our a is equal to 1, so if we get the a cube, that means we have 1 quantity raised to 3. And we have 2 quantity raised to 3, 3 quantity raised to 3, 4 quantity raised to 3, 5 quantity raised to 3, 6 quantity raised to 3, 7 quantity raised to 3, 8 quantity raised to 3, 9 quantity raised to 3, and 10 quantity raised to 3. So how do we get the value of 1 quantity raised to 3? So let us expand this expression. So 1 quantity raised to 3, meaning 1 times 1 times 1. So since the exponent is 3, so the answer will be positive 1. If we expand positive 2 raised to 3, so we have 2 times 2 times 2. So the answer is positive 8. If we expand 3 quantity raised to 3, so that means 3 times 3 times 3. So the answer is 27. So 1 quantity raised to 3 is 1. 2 quantity raised to 3 is 8. 3 quantity raised to 3 is 27. 4 quantity raised to 3 is 64. 5 quantity raised to 3 is 125. 6 quantity raised to 3 is 216. 7 quantity raised to 3 is 343. 8 quantity raised to 3 is 512. 9 quantity raised to 3 is 729. 10 quantity raised to 3 is 1000. Okay, so what do we call these numbers? Kanina, dun sa a squared, ang tawag sa kanila ay perfect squares. So if we have a cube, ang tawag sa mga numbers na to ay perfect cubes. So a cube is equal to b. So if we get the cube root of b, the answer is a. For example, if b cube is equal to 125, then cube root of 125 is equal to 5. So if we also get the cube root of 1000, so the answer will be 10 because 10 times 10 times 10 is 1000. So note that this symbol indicates principal root only. So if a raised to n is equal to b, then nth root of b is equal to a. Principal roots. A number which produces a specific quantity when multiplied by itself. It is the positive nth root of a number. It can be rational or irrational number. The notation for the principal nth root of a number b is nth root of b, where n is the index of the radical and b is the radicand. Principal roots, if the index is even and the radicand is positive, the principal nth root is positive. For example, let us say square root. Pag sinabing square root, automatic the index is 2. Square root of 4. So our index is even number. Which is yung 2. So ito yung index. Then our radicand is positive. So the principal nth root is positive. So let's say we have 2. The answer is positive. Next, if the index is even and the radicand is negative, the principal nth root is not defined. So for example, square root of negative 4. Since the radicand is negative, the answer is not defined. So it is when the index is even. So kapag add naman ng index, meron siyang sagot. So pag ang index ay even, then the radicand is negative, the answer is not defined. Next, if the index is odd and the radicand is positive, the principal nth root is positive. So, ano ba ang odd number? So, for example, cube root. So, our index is odd and our radicand, for example, 8. So, ang principal nth root niya, magiging sagot is positive. So, which is 2. Next, if the index is odd and the radicand is negative, the principal nth root is negative. O for example, cube root. So, ang index natin ay 3, which is odd number. So, negative 8. So, ang radicand natin ay negative 8. The principal nth root is negative. Magiging negative 2. Okay? Give the principal nth root of the given radicals and identify if it is rational or irrational. If irrational, just write the radical. Number 1, square root of 5. So 5 is not a perfect square. So we will just rewrite square root of 5. Since hindi siya perfect square, we can say that square root of 5 is irrational number. Number 2, square root of 4. Square root of 4 is positive and negative 2. But we are talking about principal nth root. So the principal root of 4 is positive 2. Positive 2 is rational number. Number 3, cube root of 27. So cube root, so we're talking about the principal and root. So the answer is positive 3. So 3 is rational number. Number 4, fourth root of 225. So 225, there is no fourth root for 225. So this is irrational number. Principal root of 1/4. So the answer is 1/2, and 1/2 is rational number. The estimated value of irrational roots. If a principal root is irrational, kapag irrational siya, hindi siya perfect square or perfect cube, give an estimate of its value. Find two closest integers to the given nth root. Example, square root of 15. So let us enumerate perfect squares numbers. So we have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. So saan malapit ang 15? So malapit ang 15 kay 9 at 16. So that means square root of 9, then square root of 15, square root of 16. Kasi mas malapit siya dito sa dalawa, in between. Square root of 15 is irrational because it is not a perfect square number. So square root of 15, nasa gitna siya ng square root of 9 and square root of 16. So square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4. Therefore, the value of square root of 15 is in between 3 and 4. So square root of 15 is greater than 3 but less than 4. So this is the answer. Next, cube root of 11. So this is irrational. So let us enumerate the perfect cube numbers. So we have 1, 8, 27, 64. Okay, so yung 11, malapit siya kay 8 at saka 27. In between. So we can say, so cube root of 11 is in between a cube root of 8 and cube root of 27. So let us get the cube root of 8, which is 2. Cube root of 27 is 3. So that means ang cube root of 11 is in between 2 and 3. So this is the answer. Okay, fourth root of 225. So this is irrational. So malapit siya sa 81, fourth root of 81, and fourth root of 256. The fourth root of 81 is 3, fourth root of 256 is 4. So the value of the fourth root of 225 is in between 3 and 4. So this is the answer. Okay, find the two consecutive integers where the nth root of a number lies. Okay, for example, 12. So let us enumerate the perfect square numbers. So we have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 100. So yung 12, malapit siya sa 9 at 16. So that means square root of 12 is in between the square root of 9 and square root of 16. Yan. So magiging sagot dyan is 3 less than square root of 12 is less than 4. Yan. Okay, number 2. Cube root of 36. Ano-ano ba yung mga perfect cubes? So 1, 8, 27, 64. So yung 36, malapit siya sa 27 at 64. So that means in between siya ng square root of 27 and 64. So we can say that cube root of 36 is greater than cube root of 27 but less than cube root of 64. So magiging sagot dyan, cube root of 27 is 3, cube root of 64 is 4. Yan. So sa gitna siya. So this is now the answer. Number 3, square root of 200. Okay, so square root of 200 is between square root of 196 and square root of 225. So square root of 196. Then we have square root of 200. Then we have square root of 225. So square root of 196 is 14. Square root of 225 is 15. So in between siya nung dalawang value. So this is the answer. Okay? Thank you for watching.